Hello and welcome to H-Karts, coming to you from behind a microphone, as we'll be taking a look at the 2018 BUKC season from a slightly biased perspective. This includes the Rookies Championship as well as the mains, where Huddersfield A battled valiantly to try and oust Oxford Brookes and Loughborough off of the coveted top spot. The calendar featured 4 circuits, including regular visitors Buckmore Park and Wilton Mill, the slightly less regular Clay Pigeon, and for the first time in the BUKC's history, Houghton Park. So, let's head straight into the action. Once the qualifiers are quickly glossed over. Huddersfield A came second behind Loughborough A and had 5 top 3 finishes, including a win in race 8 for Joseph Jakes. Huddersfield B came 18th overall, with the best result of 9th in race 6, courtesy of Sam Turn. One other point to note was that Jack Linus was spun round at the start of race 5. So, the first race at Buckmore Park got underway with Aaron Walsh making an amazing start from 12th on the grid to be 4th by the end of the first lap. He ran 5th for most of the race and even moved up to 4th after Coventry B spun in excitement from overtaking an Oxford Brookes for the lead. On lap 13, however, an incident somewhere in the second sector dropped Walsh down to 17th. He eventually recovered to finish in the stereotypically unlucky place of 13th, although 5th in the intermediate class makes it sound a lot better. The race was won by Oxford Brookes B ahead of Imperial A and Nottingham A. Special mention to Manchester Metropolitan A for holding a lurid slide that even Ken Block would be proud of. Before race 2 got underway, Joseph Jakes had time for a quick spin during the reconnaissance laps before the grid formed, obviously wanting a bit of airtime. Jack Linus would steal some of his limelight for the start as he was starting second. Although he became the meat in a Birmingham C and Nottingham Trent A sandwich, he survived to run in the top 10 for most of the race before suffering an incident on the penultimate lap, and he eventually finished 15th. According to the live timing, it happened somewhere in the second sector, so obviously Captain Chaos had been giving the racing Linus some tips. Meanwhile, Shaky Jakes had shrugged off his warm-up mishap and had a good start from 13th on the grid to run in the top 6 for most of the race, before finishing 4th behind Nottingham Trent A, Brunel A and Liverpool A. Alex Gunn was next out for the third race of the day, and he went one better than Linus by starting from pole position, mostly thanks to the completely randomised grids. He had a good start to hold the lead at the end of the first lap. Despite tenaciously holding off the advances of Liverpool A at the start of the second lap, and catching this orgasmic slide, Gunn assumed 5th by half distance before a late black flag dropped him down to 9th come the end of the race. The top 3 were Imperial A, defending champions Loughborough A, and Oxford Brookes A. Between races 3 and 4, the volatile microclimate at Buckmore Park decided to throw a spanner in the works by giving the circuit a quick bath. Whereas Gunn had started from pole position, Ollie Milner was dumped in the exact opposite position. With no pun intended, Milner stormed his way through the field and by half distance, he was in an amazing 3rd place. But just as he took 2nd, he received a black flag for an ABC takeout. Maybe the shotgun had been giving the man with the golden Volvo some tips. Despite his penalty, Milner still finished in an excellent 4th behind Oxford Brookes A, Oxford Brookes B and Leeds Beckett A. Did he hold on to that one, I wonder? New candidate for save of the day, Newcastle B for a 360 and keeping it going. Stephen Letts and Luke Bath were next out for race 5, and both were starting well down the order thanks to the grid lottery. Both had clean starts, and by lap 6, both were in the top 20. Letts even set the fastest first sector of the entire race by this point, but then on the next lap, Bath had his tub flooded after an incident dropped him down the order. He would eventually finish 30th, while Letts kept up his good pace throughout to finish 7th. Lucky escape of the day goes to Nottingham B for this piece of evasion. The final race of round 1 saw Sam Turn take to the track, and he would have to work hard from 25th on the grid. Being so far down meant that the turntable wasn't able to be involved in the first hairpin incident, which he was apparently disappointed about. Nevertheless, he sliced his way up the order very quickly and ran for much of the race in the top 10, and he even had time to show off as well. He finished 7th, having benefited from Oxford A spinning on the last lap. The top 3 were Leeds A, Nottingham B and Birmingham A. So at the end of the first round, Huddersfield A were a solid 5th overall behind Oxford Brookes A and B, Nottingham A and Imperial A. while Huddersfield B were 20th out of 54 teams, or 4th out of 29 from an intermediate's perspective. So for the first race of the Enduros, Jack Linus started from 6th, while Stephen Letts was in 9th. The first 2 corners went quite well for both, but then Southampton Air gave Linus a cheeky slap on his bottom, which dropped him way down the order. It's the qualifiers all over again for the Racing Linus. Letts kept it out of trouble during that first lap, and then made good progress on the second. First he got past Oxford Brookes D for 5th going into the first corner, before Birmingham B was kind enough to spin out of the lead and hand Letts 4th. Having already gained 2 more places on the next lap, Letts took the lead going into Garda Hairpin before setting out to guarding first place. A quick first pit stop plus an adept touch in the wet allowed Letts to extend his lead before handing over to Alex Gunn for the final 23 3/4 minutes. Meanwhile, Linus had recovered to 15th after his spanking before Luke Bath took over. Although the track was drying out, it was still very tricky for the drivers, and unfortunately for the Bath bomb, he spun off at Symes Sweep while in 19th place. Another spin with a few minutes to go dropped him to 26th come the end of the race, but make that 14th in the intermediates. Meanwhile, Gunn spent some of his stint playing with Loughborough C and generally just pacing himself until the end, where he and Letts took Huddersfield's first win of 2018 ahead of Southampton A and Oxford Brookes A. Race 2, and although Aaron Walsh was eager to get some airtime, no Huddersfield teams were in this race. So let's just say that Loughborough A won from Exeter A and Warwick A, and that the track had dried out by the time race 3 got underway. Both Ollie Milner and Aaron Walsh started in the bottom 10, but they made good progress in the early laps before making early first pit stops, and by virtue of keeping up a consistent pace, both drivers were in the top 10 at 1/3 distance. Even so, Milner would have to work hard if Huddersfield A were to win round 2. Just before half distance, Walsh overtook Milner for what was 8th position at the time, and things would get even more challenging for the man with the golden Volvo, as he had picked up a penalty for multiple bouts of contact with other drivers. It was apparently rumoured that Milner was trying to clamber into someone else's cart and give them his secret handshake, followed by a friendly hug. As soon as the second pit stop window opened, both Huddersfield drivers again pitted at the earliest opportunity, but the A-team had a much longer stop as Milner took a while morphing into Joseph Jakes, probably due to using dial-up rather than the more efficient Wi-Fi connection that helped Walsh and Turn rejoin in 8th. While the turntable was still showing off, Shaky Jakes was making progress from 18th courtesy of others making their second pit stops. His progress was so impressive it made the camera sneeze. With 8 minutes to go, Turn and Jakes assumed 5th and 6th, where they would remain until the end, even with the A-team's post-race penalties. The top 3 were Oxford Brookes A, Exeter A and Oxford Brookes C. So the results of round 2 saw Huddersfield A take 3rd overall behind Oxford Brookes A and Exeter A, while Huddersfield B were 18th, or 6th in intermediates. But that's not the end of this retrospective, as the following day featured round 1 of what was known back then as the Rookies Championship, where Huddersfield C and D took part. Because Alpha Live weren't streaming for that event, this particular segment will be a little bit more rudimentary. Just a quick weather report before getting into the action. The whole day was dry. Race 1 featured C Team's Ryan Hayburn starting in 18th place, and D Team's Leonardo Bevilacqua starting 31st. That's the position Hayburn was aiming to finish, quite an optimistic target for the Needle, but nevertheless it was a smooth race for him as he worked his way through half the field to finish in 9th. Bevilacqua's race, on the other hand, was a lot more interesting. Apparently he had a spin in a place that was considered very unusual. If this was you, Leonardo, then that's actually quite impressive. He eventually finished 30th. The 2 teasers were next up for race 2, with C Team's Danny Mall starting 30th and D Team's Ben Tripp starting 28th. Mall kept a steady pace and stayed out of trouble from the other racers to finish 24th, while Tripp had a less fruitful encounter and finished where he started. He did receive a 10-second penalty for a bump and pass during the race, which is 10 seconds more than what most NASCAR drivers get. None of our Huddersfield lot were out for races 3 and 4, so it's straight to race 5 where Jack Hodges qualified an excellent 3rd for the C team and Gary F. Mangan qualified 19th for the D team. But a quick mention to Strathclyde A, who had qualified on pole, some 1.5 seconds quicker than Hodges. How? Anyway, the Jackhammer had a solid and somewhat uneventful drive to finish 2nd, while Gary F. Mangan had an equally strong drive to run as high as 12th at one point before finishing 14th. The final race of the day saw John Brown start 6th for the C team and Liam Draper in 16th for the D team. Somewhere amongst the mayhem is John Brown, who was caught up in the first lap melee and also got involved in further incidents on the 3rd and 8th laps. Having dropped to as low as 22nd, he somehow managed to finish a brilliant 7th. Clearly whatever was in his Weetabix spurred him on. Draper avoided the first lap mayhem and ran as high as 11th, but a collision with Birmingham D dropped him way down the order, and come the end of the race, 27th. So those results saw Huddersfield C finish 3rd overall behind Strathclyde A and Warwick C, while Huddersfield D took 40th overall. And that concludes the first quarter of the 2018 retrospective. The next part will review the action from Wilton Mill, which will be broadcast on the H-Karts YouTube channel on the 26th of February. H-Karts would like to thank all our sponsors, and stay tuned and see you soon.